Something big is brewing on Long Island as trade talks are intensifying, all surrounding star defenseman Noah Dobson. We're going to discuss it on this episode of Islanders Digest, talk about what the Islanders could get in return for a trade sending Noah Dobson out. And in addition, there is a new team involved, and this team is really interesting and really provides a different element to what the Islanders can receive. Before we get into that, I do want to say, be sure to subscribe to the channel. This is going to be a crazy next few days as the Islanders have the first overall pick in the draft. Also, I have to talk about some other players they're going to be drafting probably in another video coming in the next few days. So if you don't want to miss that, be sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on all this Islanders content. I'd say it's daily, but we're really making more than one video a day because so much is coming out, and it really feels like the Islanders are one of the teams that are in the center of it all this season, which is a nice, refreshing change compared to previous years. Of course, it would be nice if the Islanders were involved because they were the best team in the league, but I will settle for them having the first overall pick, and as a result, everything going around them this time of year. And one of the big things is making the Islanders such a big topic of conversation is Noah Dobson and this uncertain status of what the Islanders are going to do. Now, Darsh had a press conference earlier today, and if you want to know more about that, be sure to check out our previous video. It'll be linked at the end of this video because he had a lot of interesting things to say. But one thing he did not shed a lot of light on is what he's trying to do with Noah Dobson. Yes, he said what he's supposed to say, and that he is trying to get a deal done. And he did make a joke that agents are trying to get as much money as possible, especially considering the salary cap has gone up. But other than that, there really is nothing else to report on the Islanders signing Noah Dobson. And the fact that there is nothing, because realistically you want to get this done as soon as possible, shows that the Islanders really are exploring their options here, and one of the options I think is becoming more and more likely is the Islanders trade Noah Dobson. In fact, at this point, I truly do believe some insiders when they say that this is a 50-50 chance, and I do think there's a 50-50 chance that Noah Dobson stays on the Islanders, signs a $9.5 or so million contract for 8 years, and that'll be the end of this. If he signs a contract, this is over. But I do think there's a scenario that they really do trade Noah Dobson, and one option that I brought up that now Frank Cervelli is saying is in the works is the Sabers and Islanders have talked, and one of the things they've talked about is Noah Dobson for JJ Peterka. And this is something that really excites me. In addition, we're also going to be talking about David Pagnotta has said the St. Louis Blues are poking around a little bit on Noah Dobson, and this is also really interesting because notably the St. Louis Blues were a team linked to the Islanders earlier in the season before the trade deadline. They were uncertain on what they wanted to do with one of their forwards, Jordan Kyrou, and that makes another really compelling trade for Noah Dobson. I'm going to break down second, but first I really want to focus on this JJ Peterka stuff. I know we've talked about it before, but I think JJ Peterka is one of the best players the Islanders can get in return for Noah Dobson. I'd be so pleased with him coming back to the Islanders on a trade. Now, JJ Peterka alone probably would not be enough, just because even though he's had a consistent 2 years now at only 23, putting up 28 and 27 goals, one thing the Islanders need a lot of is scoring and young scoring. Emphasis on the young, and that is why JJ Peterka really fits all the needs, in my opinion, of the Islanders. Also, this is a player who I think can grow into a bigger role, and I stand correct. In a previous video, I said the Sabres were not great offensively. They were a top 10 offense, but they really struggled on the power play, and I think this is something that both Peterka comes to the Islanders can help the Islanders with their power play and also really allow him to play with a better player, because while Peterka has played with great players on the Sabres, he's never really played with a playmaker of the likes of Mathew Barzal. And when Mathew Barzal is at his best, I think he's one of the best playmakers in the NHL, which is why I think Peterka and Barzal can do so much damage together. Now, when I say that the Islanders are probably going to want to get more in return besides just Peterka, it's really because if you look at Peterka, while he did have a 68-point season last year, that is something to be excited about. He's never had more than that, and he is young. I have no doubt that he would have more points next season for the Islanders. If you look at Noah Dobson, you got to keep in mind when it comes to Noah Dobson, you have to get an insane package in return for him because he is a right-handed defenseman, one of the rarest positions in the NHL. Yes, Peterka is a very skilled forward, but he's a winger. It is a lot easier to trade for a winger in the NHL than a young right-handed defenseman. In addition, Noah Dobson has a 70-point season. So I do think there would be more, it is to be a more complicated trade than just Peterka. It does get really interesting because from the Islanders' perspective, really, they can't really add any players coming back because one thing I've talked about is the 9th overall pick, and I do think that would likely be included in this trade. It's been mentioned that the Islanders have been sniffing around that pick. While it hasn't been connected to this trade, you can connect the dots. The issue here, though, is you'd likely have to add a little bit of value back, and the Islanders can't add anything else on their roster. One thing you think about, especially when you think of the Sabres and their needs, is like, oh, why not like a veteran like JJ Peterka? And the issue is nobody wants to go to Buffalo, and a lot of players on the Islanders have partial trade protection. Now, that's really not a big deal because in most of the cases, I think most of them can be traded for pretty premium value, but it also means none of them are going to want to go to the Sabres. So guys like Adam Pelech that we talked about, even though I don't think the Sabres will want him anyway, they have so many left-handed defensemen, but those guys are not going to be interested in going to Buffalo. Though I do wonder if perhaps the Islanders sending a lesser pick back, such as their second-round pick in this draft, could get the job done. And I really would not lose any sleep over trading the second-round pick if the Islanders can get 1 and 9. In addition, JJ Peterka in exchange for Noah Dobson. I think that would be a really interesting trade, and I'd love to see if there's more updates on this in the coming days as we get closer to the draft. If that trade's to happen, it's going to have to happen soon, so we're going to keep our eyes peeled. The next other trade option I do want to talk about is the St. Louis Blues, and as I've said, kind of spoiled the name I'm going to talk about here earlier, but it doesn't really matter. The St. Louis Blues have a player who I'm also really interested in and that is Jordan Kyrou. Kyrou is a player who actually has been linked to the Islanders a couple times. St. Louis, for some reason, there's something they don't love about Kyrou, really trying to figure out what that is. Looking at his stats, because he seems like he checks all the boxes. Last season, he was a plus 23. In addition, scored 36 goals. When we talk about what the Islanders need to get back for Noah Dobson, it's a 30-plus goal scorer. And Jordan Kyrou, 3 years in a row now, has scored 30 goals, 36, 31, 37. The year before that, 27. So this is a guy who can score a lot of goals, and he's not that old at age 27. Now, compared to Purka, he's not as young, so I don't love this trade idea as much for the Islanders. In addition, because Kyrou is more established, this is likely going to be the main piece in a trade, if not a one-for-one trade. Still, you like the idea of a player like Jordan Kyrou, and if the Islanders are going to trade Noah Dobson, you need to get a goal scorer. And Kyrou is not too old at the point where it's going to be a problem. And one thing that is an advantage with Kyrou as opposed to a player like Peterka is he is locked up on what I think is a very good contract. And really surprised me why the Blues want to move him. Although I will note, after this July 1st, he has a full no trade clause. So I think this is a situation where the Blues are not sure if they want to really commit to him long term. And once that trade clause kicks in, they are stuck with him. Notably, the only thing I can really notice that is not a green flag for the Blues and Kyrou is he only had 3 goals in the playoffs this year in 7 games, 3 goals, no assists. However, his previous playoff run with the Blues, only 12 games, he had 9 points. Not incredible, but really nothing bad. Nothing worth trading him for. Still, it seems like they are interested in at least seeing what the market is for Kyrou. And considering that they're sniffing around Noah Dobson, I think it's definitely worth noting that there's a chance that these two can be traded for each other. And let me know in the comments what you think about acquiring a player like Jordan Kyrou. Even though the goal scoring is a bit higher, I honestly think I would prefer a package involving JJ Peterka. Even if it was a package with Jordan Kyrou, I just feel like the value, there's more potential for Peterka to be a better player. And I will note, with Peterka, he is considered to be a more one-dimensional player. Kyrou is considered to be a player who does a lot more outside of just scoring goals, and I do think he would also benefit from playing with Barzal. I think you can honestly see a 40-goal season if he was on the Islanders playing with a fully healthy Barzal. Peterka is definitely considered a more one-dimensional, at least so far. And keep in mind, he is young. Typically, younger players, they develop the defense a little later. And honestly, looking at his plus-minus, only a -1 for the Sabres this year, a +10 last year. Clearly, he wasn't a part of the problem when it comes to the Sabres. That's just something to keep in mind when it comes to these players and why the value for Kyrou would be higher. So let me know in the comments what you think about these trade options. Would you like to see the Islanders trade for one of these players in exchange for Noah Dobson? Or would you rather have them keep Noah Dobson? I do think there is a very legitimate argument to say the Islanders' best option is holding on to Noah Dobson. As valuable as these forwards are, and as much as they are something that the Islanders have needed for a long time, if you're trading Noah Dobson, then you're going to need a new, skilled, top-pair right-handed defenseman. And as the Islanders know, that is not easy to find. It's why the development of Noah Dobson has been so important over the past years. Love to know your thoughts in the comments below. Have hockey conversations with you guys in the comments. That's my favorite part of this channel. If you haven't already, what are you waiting for? Subscribe to the channel. My name is Patrick Nilan. Catch you on the next episode of Islanders Digest. Let's go, Islanders!